London is quieter than usual, a stillness that belongs to the state. Outside the gates of Buckingham Palace, people stand in the rain, some with flowers, some in silence. A footman crosses the forecourt and pins a black-bordered notice to the railing. The Queen is dead. In the days that follow, the same figure keeps appearing in the images from London. Beside the new king stands a man in uniform. Not as a son, not as a politician. One step back, his gaze forward. He is meant to go unnoticed. Yet in these days, millions notice him. His name, Major Johnny Thompson. This is not the story of a man who holds power. It is the story of a man who stands beside power as it changes hands. On the 8th of September 2022, Queen Elizabeth II dies at Balmoral. That same day, Prince Charles becomes King Charles III. But a king is not made by law alone. He must appear, sign, be seen. And at every one of these steps, someone stands nearby to keep the sequence intact. Johnny Thompson is that man. The only question is, how did a man who was never meant to be seen become the face of the most visible transfer of power in Europe? The 8th of September begins with a cautious announcement. The Queen's doctors are concerned. Nothing more is said at first. Family members set out for Balmoral. Cameras turn toward gates, cars, helicopters. Nothing is official yet. But the machinery is already in motion. In the evening, the news comes. The Queen has died. A sentence that seemed unthinkable for decades is suddenly on every screen. The next morning, Charles leaves Balmoral in a black suit, visibly grave. He flies from Aberdeen to London, on English soil for the first time as king. Thousands wait outside Buckingham Palace. Charles steps out, walks to the barrier, and shakes every outstretched hand. Someone kisses his hand. Voices rise, "God save the king." And watching over this first public appearance as monarch is one officer, Johnny Thompson. He is an officer of the 5th Battalion of the Royal Regiment of Scotland, once the Queen's most senior bodyguard. For years he stood at her side, knew her roots, her habits, her silences. Then he became Charles's equerry, while Charles was still Prince of Wales. Now he accompanies the son of the woman he once protected, through the days of her mourning. That same day he attends the next encounter. Prime Minister Liz Truss arrives at Buckingham Palace for the first of her weekly audiences, and it is Thompson who leads her through the halls to the king. An equerry is an officer of the armed forces assigned to attend the monarch. He manages the diary, accompanies the king at nearly every public duty, and looks after the carriages and cars of the state ceremonies. These officers are called the king's eyes and ears. Now he stands beside a king who has only just become one. Charles is a son, and a king. He grieves, and he reigns. September 10th, 2022. St. James's Palace. Old rooms, red uniforms, rituals from another century. The Accession Council convenes. Charles is already king, but now it is spoken aloud in public, before rolling cameras. A ritual that once lay in the half-light of court order is broadcast live for the first time. Charles sits down. Before him, the documents meant to carry his signature as king. The day after the walkabout, Thompson stands behind the king as he signs the proclamations. And then something happens that was not planned this way. On the small desk, a pen tray sits in the way. Charles grimaces. He gestures, irritated, visibly. He pushes the tray aside. A tiny human crack in the middle of the ceremony lived before millions. Within hours, the clip becomes a global joke. But it is in that very crack that the real thing happens. A hand reaches in, silent, quick. It takes the tray away and disappears again. No word, no gesture, no stage. While everyone talks about the irritated king, someone at the edge has saved the form. That is Thompson's world, not the ceremony itself, but the brief moment when it slips out of step. And for the first time, people ask, who is the man behind him? Then the journey of the coffin begins. In Edinburgh, Charles leads a procession behind his mother's coffin, up the Royal Mile to St. Giles's Cathedral. Beside him, his siblings, Anne, Andrew, Edward. The coffin travels on to London. People stand along the streets, throwing flowers, falling silent as the carriage passes. At military sites across the country, guns fire 96 rounds, one for each year of the Queen's life. But while everyone watches the coffin, Charles already has to function as king. He receives condolences, he speaks with government officials, he signs documents, he moves on. And Thompson is always near him, at the right distance, never rushed. On the 13th of September, Charles signs in Belfast with a leaking pen. Again irritation, again a gesture, again a pen that will not obey. The pattern repeats, and the attentive viewer notices it. On September 19th, Westminster Abbey becomes the center of the world. The Queen's state funeral. Heads of state arrive, soldiers march, bells toll. Millions watch. Charles no longer sits in the church only as a son. He sits as king at the funeral of his mother. And as the cameras glide over the mourners, some viewers are no longer looking only for the king. They are looking for the officer behind him. A post becomes a person. More than 7 months lie between the funeral and the coronation, and Thompson stays at Charles's side, away from the mourning too. In February 2023, he escorts Ukrainian President Zelensky to the king during his visit to London. The 6th of May, 2023, Westminster Abbey again. This time no farewell, this time a coronation. The day begins with a procession from Buckingham Palace to the Abbey in an ornate carriages escorted by thousands of soldiers. Around 7,000 members of the armed forces take part. The largest ceremonial operation of its kind in a generation. Music, swords, robes, anointing, crown. Charles enters a ritual older than any camera in the room. A centuries-old sequence is streamed in real time. Millions watch. They see Charles, they see Camilla, they see bishops, pages, vestments, gold, and again they see Thompson. This time his presence is no longer incidental. It is expected, because the reason for his fame has nothing to do with the monarchy. Already after the Queen's death, a clip of him and Liz Truss had been seen. Millions of times in 4 days. The internet found the officer in the kilt attractive. It gave him nicknames, the hot equerry, Major Eye Candy. At the coronation, this turns into a mass phenomenon. Once you have noticed him, you can hardly overlook him again. The society magazine Tatler runs an annual list meant to show where the real power in Britain lies. In 2023, Thompson stands at number 3. Above him, only the king and queen and a billionaire couple. Below him, dukes, the prime minister, celebrities. A servant ranked higher than almost the entire aristocracy, and yet Thompson does absolutely nothing to provoke it. He gives no speech. He does not intervene. He simply does his job, calm, at the right distance. The court stages the crown. The audience stares at the man beside it. After the coronation, the transition is complete, officially. But the images remain. And in these images, Thompson stays unusually present. Not as a dignitary, not as a family member, but as a figure at the edge who suddenly stands at the center. For monarchy is not made only of people who rule. It is made of people who secure the roots and keep a king from looking alone. But then comes the final break. The man everyone suddenly wanted to see does not want to be seen. And yet he had never stopped being discreet. He did not push forward, gave no speeches, sought no camera. What made him visible was not his behavior, but his face. A clip, a kilt, and millions decided to look. Against this kind of attention, restraint is no defense. Once you circulate as a face online, you cannot quietly work your way back out. By all accounts, that was exactly what he could not stand. So he does the only thing left to him. He moves into a less public role, further back, away from the great occasions. He remains senior equerry to the king and queen, but out of frame. It was the only way to become again what he had wanted to be all along: invisible.